Hey everyone, welcome. We live in a world that can feel pretty chaotic, even hostile sometimes. So where do we find the strength to stand firm when things get tough? Well, today, we're diving into an ancient story with lessons that are incredibly relevant for right now, the Book of Daniel. We're going to uncover a timeless blueprint for faith for when it feels like your world is falling apart.
It's a question we all have to face at some point, right? Maybe your career hits a wall, a relationship breaks down, or you just look at the news and everything feels hostile. This is the exact situation that kicks off the entire story of Daniel.
And the answer, the whole point of this explainer, is that this ancient book is so much more than just a history lesson. It's a guide. It's God's blueprint for having unshakable faith, especially when the ground beneath your feet is shaking.
So, let's meet our main character. But hold on, before you picture this old, wise prophet with a long beard, we need to rewind. We start with Daniel as a teenager, whose entire life gets suddenly and violently turned completely upside down.
Just try to imagine this. It's around 605 BC. The world's superpower, the Babylonian Empire, rolls in and conquers your home. You're just a teenager from a noble family, and you are literally ripped away from everything and everyone you've ever known. You're forced to march nearly 1,000 miles into the heart of a foreign, pagan culture. And when you get there, you're thrown into a state-run re-education program designed to strip you of your identity, your faith, your name, everything, and turn you into a servant of the king. The pressure to just give up and conform must have been absolutely suffocating.
And it's right here, in this very first test, that Daniel makes his stand. Daniel, chapter 1, verse 8 says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself." Before any of the famous stories, before the fiery furnace, before the lion's den, there was this quiet, personal decision, this one moment of resolve to find everything that would follow.
So, what does it even mean to defile himself? This wasn't just Daniel being a picky eater. You have to understand, the king's food and wine were almost certainly first offered up as a sacrifice to pagan idols. So for Daniel to eat it would have been, in a way, participating in their worship. His refusal was a quiet but powerful act of spiritual resistance. It was a declaration that his ultimate loyalty was to the God of Israel, and no one else.
And that single decision, to honor God above the most powerful king on earth, it leads us straight to the central theme of the entire book. Because while the world sees powerful kings and unstoppable empires, Daniel pulls back the curtain to show us who is really in charge.
On the one hand, you had the power of Babylon. You could see and touch. Its massive army, its incredible architecture, its idols everywhere. It looked unstoppable. But Daniel shows us the unseen reality. God is the one who rules in the kingdom of men. He's the one who removes kings and sets up other kings. Babylon's power was temporary. It was permitted. God's power is absolute and eternal.
And this brings us to what is basically the thesis statement of the whole book, right here in Daniel chapter 4, verse 17. "The Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will." This is the key. It's the lens you have to look through to understand everything else that happens. Earthly kings have their thrones, sure, but God has the ultimate authority over all of it.
Now, knowing God is in control doesn't mean you get a free pass for an easy life. In fact, for Daniel and his friends, their unwavering faith led them straight into the fire, literally.
Just picture this scene. King Nebuchadnezzar builds this enormous 90-foot-tall golden statue, and he issues a decree for the whole empire. When you hear the music play, you bow down and worship the image. If you don't, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing, fiery furnace. There was zero middle ground.
And the response from Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is one of the most courageous things you will ever read. They respectfully, but firmly, say no. Their faith wasn't a transaction. They said they knew God could deliver them, but even if he chose not to, their decision was made. They would not bow.
The king was absolutely furious. He didn't just order them to be executed, he ordered the furnace to be heated up 7 times hotter than it normally was. This was a symbol of his total rage. It was meant to be an inescapable, terrifying death.
But when the king looked into that inferno, he saw a problem with his plan. Not only were the 3 men alive, they were untied, walking around completely unharmed. And with them was a 4th man, who the king himself said looked like the Son of God. God didn't just save them from the fire, he showed up and joined them in the fire.
Now, this pattern of incredible faithfulness in the face of death is rewarded by God in a really profound way. Because Daniel and his friends proved they could be trusted with their very lives, God decided to trust them with something else: divine insight into the future of the world.
And this reveals the brilliant, elegant structure of the whole book. It's split perfectly in two. The first 6 chapters are these historical stories. They teach us how to live for God right now, in the present. Then, chapters 7 through 12 are all these prophetic visions, and they show us what is coming in the future. Their faithfulness in the first half gives us total confidence to trust the incredible prophecies in the second half.
And the book makes this connection absolutely explicit. Right back in chapter 1, verse 17, it tells us that because of their faithfulness, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Their prophetic gift wasn't an accident. It was a direct reward from God for their commitment.
Okay, so this is all amazing history and mind-blowing prophecy. But what does it have to do with us? How do we take these lessons from ancient Babylon and apply them to our own lives, in our own version of Babylon today? Well, the book of Daniel actually gives us a really clear 3-step blueprint for courage. First, set your standard. Just like Daniel did in chapter 1, you have to purpose in your heart before the test ever comes. Decide your convictions now. Second, commit to prayer. In chapter 6, even when a new law made it illegal to pray, punishable by death, Daniel kept praying 3 times a day. His communication with God was a non-negotiable. And third, trust God's sovereignty. Remember that theme from chapter 2. Rest in the unshakable truth that God is the one in ultimate control, no matter what your circumstances look like.
And here is the single most important takeaway. The power of God has not gotten weaker over time. The very same God who supernaturally shut the mouths of hungry lions for Daniel is the same God who is present with you in whatever fiery trials or lions' dens you're facing today.
So that leaves all of us with a final question to wrestle with. Your Babylon might be your workplace, your school, or just the culture around you that pressures you to conform. The question is, in the face of that pressure, how will you choose to honor God this week?
We really hope this deep dive into the book of Daniel has been an encouragement to you. It was brought to you by the You Need Faith in Jesus team. Thanks for tuning in.